When you hear the name Colon in the pro wrestling business, you think Puerto Rico, WWE, and that family history led by the legendary Carlos Colon. But there's more. There's Orlando Colon, Epico from WWE, Carlito, and Eddie Primo. Hey, Eddie is currently living in South Florida, in Miami to 305, a three-time WWE Tag Team Champion. And, how about this, a multi-time champion singles and tag in WWC in Puerto Rico. Eddie is a shining star wherever he goes. Thank you, Primo Eddie. How do you like living in South Florida?
Well, I haven't moved yet, so that goes to say it's kind of like living in Puerto Rico. I think English is the second language, especially in Miami. But it's the sun is always shining. I like the weather. I like the beach, so I don't feel too far from home anytime I'm in Miami.
Eddie, do you have any favorite places yet down here that you like to eat?
I gotta say Ceviche 105, which is right by the American Airlines Arena. You can't go wrong with any Colombian food. There's actually a restaurant I really love to go to. It's Dolphin Mall, because they have one in Puerto Rico. It's Cuban and Puerto Rican. It's called Metropole. I don't know if you've been there, but they have the same menu in Puerto Rico. So anytime I want some arroz con habichuelas, a pollo frito, that's where I go.
Any mofongo?
Oh, of course, yeah. That tops the list. And they make it just right. They make it just right, so I don't have to fly down to Puerto Rico anytime I get the urge to eat some mofongo relleno de carrucho.
I had mofongo down by the American Airlines Arena in that Bayside, in that area and all, and I was with someone authentic, and it was not authentic. It was too dry. It was very dry.
Oh, well, you got to check out Metropole. It's almost like eating soup.
That's the way to eat it, too. So I have to check out the Dolphin Mall. I have to go to the Dolphin Mall and check that out. Hey, Eddie, how has everything been with COVID-19, with your family, yourself, and friends?
Well, actually, I actually contracted COVID, I believe, back in maybe mid-February. And I realized something was wrong. COVID wasn't as popular as it is now back then, to put it lightly. So I quarantined for about a week, just so I didn't make anybody else sick. I was worried about my parents, because they're up in age. My dad's 72. My mom, she won't want me to mention her age, so I won't, but she's close to it. And we're just hunkering down, and we'll get through this.
Well, gee, Eddie, when that happens, too, because back in February, obviously we didn't know as much as we know about it now. What was that like even back then?
Well, it was kind of like a China problem, you know what I mean? It wasn't, it'll never get here, or we didn't think it was going to be all that bad, but it's basically a version of SARS. And if you remember a couple of years ago, SARS was pretty deadly. So I think everybody should take it seriously. I don't leave my house without a mask. I have hand sanitizer in my car, in my house. I try to avoid the big gyms. I'll go there when traffic's kind of slow, like in the early afternoon. But at the condo I live, thank God nobody likes to work out, so I have the whole gym to myself most of the time.
Now, you're working out at the gym. Have you been doing anything else during the pandemic just to occupy the time, whether it be reading, Netflix, or anything else?
Yeah. I got Netflix. I think I've already seen every episode on Netflix, just to pass the time. But this is actually, I try to look at the positives of everything. Being on the road for so long, for so many years, it's kind of refreshing. Just to lay back and be able to do nothing. Just enjoy, smell the air, and relax, reflect on what I've done, and just take it easy.
Now, you cut out a little bit on the Netflix part. What have you been watching?
I like stand-up comedy. I'm watching The Toughest Prisons in the World. And there's a whole bunch. I'll look on whatever's trending. I'll give it a shot. Sometimes it's a hit, sometimes it's a miss. But that's usually what occupies my time.
Have you been watching any pro wrestling on television?
A little bit, not that much. I had a chance to see my good friend Mike Yoda, who debuted on AEW.
Yeah, what was that like, too? Because here's someone that refereed for WWE a long time, and then all of a sudden you're watching AEW, and there's Mike on it. It's a different type of feeling when you see something like that.
Well, yeah, you almost feel like changing the TV set because you can't believe what you're seeing. But, times change. And it's kind of like when we saw Earl Hebner in TNA.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. That's exactly what it was like to see something like that happening. When you're working in WWE, what is it like, since you brought up Mike, what is it like working with the referees? And do you think the referees don't get as much credit as they should for the job they do, or they get enough credit?
And I mean this in the most politically correct way. I think they're at the bottom of the totem pole, unfortunately. But a good referee or a bad ref will really determine how good your match goes. Because you could have a hell of a humdinger with a great opponent, but if that referee's not there on time, if that referee's off timing, if that referee doesn't make that 2 count, they're an integral part of what we do, and I think they're very underappreciated.
Now, I don't want to pull back the curtain all that much, and there's a lot of curtain that's been pulled back over the years, especially with social media. But Eddie, have you ever been in a match, and no names needed, but have you ever been in a match where the referee was counting and the referee counted too quick and hit the 3, or didn't go enough, wasn't going fast enough to get the 3? Is that something, not just WWE, just anywhere, WWC or wherever?
Well, yeah, wherever you go. Usually I like to talk to the ref before any match, be it WWE, independent scene, wherever, just to get a feeling of what experience he or she has. And because really, they make the emotion. Especially when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, like at the very end when the fans think the match is almost over, but it isn't. That's all really on the ref.
Now give us some positive information about the referees, which you already have, but some names. Who are some of the referees that you've enjoyed working with, whether it be at WWC or WWE or anywhere else?
There's one called The Athletic. In Spanish it's called El Atlético. Now, the last thing he is athletic. He doesn't look it, but that's what his name was. And he was one of the very first referees I worked with. I learned a lot from him. Mike Kyoto's a good friend of mine. He gives me pointers, and believe it or not, he's never had he's never been in a fight as far as wrestling goes. But he's seen so many matches. I mean, he's an infinite fountain of wisdom, and anybody who has opportunity to have him, to have the privilege to work with him, I mean, they should take advantage and ask him any question, even a stupid question, because he has an answer for everything. Little Mitch, who's in WWE right now.
Charles Robinson, yes sir.
Robinson, yeah, he's a good guy, good human being. John Cone is another great guy I consider a friend.
Did you say John Cone?
Yeah.
The Donut King of Kansas City?
That's the guy, yeah, the donut guy.
Have you ever had a Donut King donut?
Yeah, I think when we were in Kansas City, he brought a couple dozen.
Oh, that's great.
I only ate a couple because I had to wrestle that.
That is awesome. Hey, how big a celebrity personality? I sort of know the answer, but I'll ask it anyway. How big a celebrity personality is your father, Carlos Colon, in Puerto Rico?
Oh, well, it doesn't matter where he goes. I mean, he's recognized. And it's a funny story you told me that because one time we were in visiting my grandmother. My mom's Canadian, so we were in Kitchener, Canada, eating at what's the equivalent of an IHOP. I think it's called. It starts with S. I forgot the name. Shoney's? No, not Shoney's. They make good barbecue chicken.
Oh boy, Sonny's. Sonny's? No.
Yeah.
Sonny's. There's Sonny's barbecue. I know that.
And then we go there, and then my dad hasn't been on Canadian TV for over 30 years, and he gets recognized. And I'm with my brother Carlito. At the time, he was in WWE. And he didn't get recognized. and my dad modestly looks over and says, "See, that's what legend status is." And he said it with a smile on his face. He got to enjoy that moment. I was happy for him.
Oh, that's so great. That is so good. Is he, I hope I say this right, because I was thinking of saying it another way. Is he the Hulk Hogan of Puerto Rico?
Well, I think he's actually bigger. Because, I might be biased because he's my dad, but if history is correct, and I think I'm right on what I'm about to say is, WWE came to Puerto Rico one time, and they brought Hulk Hogan, they brought Macho Man, they brought everybody. They went to the bigger stadium, which is the Hiram Bithorn, that one in San Juan, and my dad had a show, and this is at the peak of the wrestling industry in Puerto Rico. We had a show the same night in Bayamon in the Luguero, and we had twice the size of a crowd show up.
That's amazing.
Anytime Hulk Hogan sees my dad, he pays homage and respect because he realizes he might be Hulk Hogan everywhere else in the world, but in Puerto Rico, I think Carlos Colon has his number.
That is amazing. And it just says, because WWE then worked with Carlos Colon in WWC as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
So when they're doing something like that, I mean, obviously, when the shows are going and they're not working and they see that, it just makes business sense to say, whoa, we're not running against them. Let's join them.
Exactly. If you can't beat them, join them.
Hey, so did Dad train you? Were there others who trained you as well?
I have to give that credit to the late, great Isaac Rosario, who happened to be a referee, and then he was ring announcer. My dad had a good friendship with him, and when he was done wrestling, because he started out with him training in Barbaroa's gym in New York. The only reason my dad became a wrestler is because the day he went to the gym, they weren't doing boxing classes. They were doing wrestling classes. And so by coincidence, he said, all right, let me pick this up. So he found his love for wrestling back then. And I think he was like 14 or 15 years old.
Imagine if they had boxing there instead.
Well, he might have been he might have been a Tito Trinidad, because my dad is definitely one hell of an athlete.
That's amazing. Did they ever meet?
Trinidad, yeah. Trinidad actually refereed a match where my cousin was facing Ray Gonzalez. This is back in, I'm bad with numbers, but maybe 08, 2000. You can YouTube it. Look at Tito Trinidad referees WWC or something like that, and you'll see Tito Trinidad. I think he gives my cousin a good little jab in the match.
Hey, do you know if he ever had any interest in wrestling?
I think he did. He was a fan of my dad, from what I understand.
That is just so cool.
But I think once you're done with boxing, you've done that your whole life. It's kind of hard. It's kind of like Michael Jordan trying to be a baseball player.
Yeah, right, exactly. And then he went back to basketball, of course, and then ended up getting into the business side of the sport. But yeah, it's a good analogy. You debuted about 1999, and so you were a teenager when you got started, is correct?
Yeah, I was 17 years old.
Was that common in Puerto Rico for wrestlers to start that young, or was it more because of the family history that you started so young?
I think it was I always wanted to do it. I wanted to do it more than my brother did, actually. So my dad was actually putting the brakes on me, which was right, because my mom wanted to make sure I got a college education, which thanks to my sister I got, because I cheated off her. But I want to make sure I at least got a bachelor's. So I studied while I was wrestling in Puerto Rico.
So what did you get your degree in?
Business administration.
Getting a degree in business administration, does that help you down the road as far as finances and pro wrestling and just, whether it be pro wrestling or any job for that matter, but did that help at all or not really?
I've used it, but in a very general sense. Like I haven't opened my own business, but I invest my money wisely, or try to. And I've been fortunate enough to see a lot of guys who made it big. They see a fountain of money just fill their pockets, and they think it's never going to end. I was able from a young age to realize that, wait a minute, this isn't forever. Save some more, because you don't know how long you'll live. And the last thing you want to do is be broke and have no job skill.
Yeah, I always remember the ESPN docudrama on athletes that just blew through millions of dollars. It was crazy.
I mean, I think Mike Tyson's a good example. I think it was worth $4 million when he had bankruptcy. But I mean, when you've never seen money and it's handed to you, I mean, it's kind of like doing a Toys R Us run, where you just grab anything you see and don't think about tomorrow.
Kid in a candy store.
Exactly, yeah.
For those that don't know, if you can, the short answer is best you can, and because it could be a whole book. Probably is a book. Yeah, probably has a book. But give us some history background of your father, and what is he doing today?
Well, the company, WWC, we're still running, we're still in business. Unfortunately, due to COVID, like our local basketball league, that's shut down. I think there's been a spike in cases in Puerto Rico, unfortunately. So I think the governor she's supposed to say something today. I think they're going to shut down this. They're going to go back to phase 1. Or I think they were in phase 3. They're going back to phase 1. So we're kind of pulling back on opening up business in the country, or the island as of now, which is unfortunate. But once there's a vaccine, or once we get herd immunity, whatever comes first, we'll be doing shows, and hopefully I plan to put my 2 cents into it, and hopefully we're trying to do pay-per-views. I think that's the future. So you might be able to get to be able to see our product, our current product, in a pay-per-view platform soon.
Eddie, is working behind the scenes too something that you're interested in?
Well, yeah, I think that's something. It's easier to just be a wrestler. It's a lot harder to run the show. There's a lot that goes behind the scenes that makes your hair fall out.
This WWC, World Wrestling Council, all the greats went through Puerto Rico and WWC. And it started, I believe, in the 70s.
Yeah, in the 70s. I'd say from the 70s to the early 90s, anybody that was somebody paid a visit to WWC. I think it was a rite of passage. I think Bret Hart himself said he learned a lot when he came down here. I believe Kane, which was known as Doomsday, he broke into the business basically in Puerto Rico. He did a stint for about 2 years.
Do you remember, was Doomsday like Kane, or were they totally different personas?
There was, well, I mean, when you got a guy who's almost 7 foot tall and just huge, there's a lot of similarities. But he didn't know as much wrestling as he does now.
Or politics.
Exactly. Now he's into that, yeah.
The mayor. It's good to have it in him with a mayor, especially if you're in Tennessee and you're going a little bit over the speed limit.
Yeah, you better watch out. He doesn't mess around.
Well, WWC, it is so amazing. Randy Savage, Ric Flair, Bruiser Brody, Stan Hansen, and the one name I saw, and I always remember the Apter Mags, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, Bill Apter, Superstars. You would see Carlos Colon versus Abdullah the Butcher, the wild man from Sudan, in a bloody feud battle. Do you remember watching any of that later on, or seeing pictures of that later on? Because that was a while ago.
Well, no, I lived it. I remember seeing those matches, and there was something different to it. I mean, it wasn't wrestling; it was a fight. It was a battle, and it was one of those matches where people weren't sitting down. Everybody's standing up. So you have 8,000 to 12,000 people just standing up, just at all awe, looking at what's going to happen next, and they never disappointed.
Are the fans in Puerto Rico different from the fans in the United States?
Yes. The fans in Puerto Rico, they're very passionate. I mean, they're louder. And I realized this, I think it was like the second time that WWE went to Puerto Rico. I get all these American, colleagues, wrestlers, they coming back to the locker room and say, I can't believe the crowd is so hot. I said, yep. There's a distinctive noise they make every time a wrestler does a punch. You hear this big wah in unison. And it's something that just, gives you goosebumps.
Speaking of goosebumps, your dad is inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2014. And you, your brother Carlito, and your cousin, Orlando, Epico, induct him. What was that experience like for you all to be a part of it like that? I was pretty nervous. Not for me. I just wanted to make sure I did my father right, in the sense that paying the homage and the credit that is due for what he's done and the legacy he's left behind. I mean, to be a Latino promoter and to be a Latino star, black too, African American. I mean, in an era where, let's say, wrestling hasn't evolved in sports, I think my dad has really broken so many ceilings that to this day, I think it's something that should be admired and people should aspire to. When they talk about Bruno Sammartino selling out the Garden, your dad, as a wrestler and also as a leader, a promoter, booker, did that tremendously in Puerto Rico with WWC. And that will always show in the history books. And it's an amazing accomplishment.
No, man, my dad ran shows not only in Puerto Rico, but Trinidad, Tobago, he did Aruba. I mean, he ran the whole Caribbean. We did shows in Dominican Republic. We ran against, I believe his name was Jack Veneno. Yeah, he had his own promotion. I think you've heard the story of him and Ric Flair.
No.
I think Jack Veneno wrestled Ric Flair in Dominican Republic. And it was a sold out. It was a sold out crowd too. I think my dad helped get Flair to Dominican Republic.
Was he the champion at the time?
I believe he was NWA champion. Yeah.
It's just, wow. Just so many incredible names and matches that are there. Did you get any advice from your dad and or your brother about working for WWE?
Yes. He said, keep your eyes open and your mouth shut.
That's good advice for anything.
You know, he said a lot of things that I assumed, but looking back, he was always right.
You and Cousin Orlando had tag team runs in WWE, and prior, you signed with WWE in about 2007 under developmental, assigned to FCW, Florida Championship Wrestling in Tampa.
Correct, under the helm of Steve Keirn.
Good. That's what I was getting. Thank you so much, because that's what I was getting to. I was going to ask you, what were your thoughts? It's so much change now with the WWE Performance Center in Orlando. It's like night and day. Not the training per se, but just the look, the aesthetics. But what was it like in Tampa, and the guidance of people like legends like Steve Keirn, and also talented wrestlers, trainers like Norman Smiley?
Norman Smiley, I got to give credit to Dr. Tom. The nicest human being you'll ever meet, Tom Pritchard, by far. I was surprised he was in the wrestling business. He was so nice.
That's a good double compliment right there. There was so much talent and trainers at FCW. I think when people look at FCW, they think, oh, look at this facility broken down. It's like old school facilities. It's not the PC.
To me, that's where you learn. You know what I mean? You have to know the basics. You have to appreciate the little things. Because, you know, when you get called up and, you know, you're flying first class, and, you know, you have security and this and that. But you have to, you know, you have to start from the bottom and work your way up. I had the fortunate blessing to have the last name Cologne. So I don't think I had to go through any hazing or any of the hardship I guess a regular Joe would have to go, just because I got the respect off the bat. Obviously, once they get to know me, but then I earned that respect. But yeah, SCW was a nice time. I have no complaints, and I think, to be honest with you, NXT is now making money, which is crazy to me, because any AA team for, let's say, the Arizona Diamondbacks, they have a AA team. Nobody knows where. Nobody knows. You know, they don't draw a lot of people. But because all it's meant to do is to develop talent. They've been able to develop talent and make their own successful brand. So I applaud them in that sense. But the only drawback I have about it is when somebody debuts to the big leagues, be it SmackDown or Raw, people already know them. So there's no awe, there's no surprise, there's no who's this, there's no intrigue. Like, okay, I want to know as a fan who he is or who she is, what they're about, what they're capable of, because they've already seen it in NXT. So I think WWE kind of loses their surprise factor, if you will.
Well, you do lose the surprise factor, you're right. And the thing is, unless you're a outsider, so to speak, like a Ronda Rousey, you're going to probably go through NXT now before you go to Raw or SmackDown. So you do lose the surprise factor. But in essence, like you said, but NXT, which was never started out to be its own brand, has morphed into its own brand. And I don't know if did you all ever work for NXT? Because I know you worked for FCW and then you were WWE and you had, a 13-year run with WWE? That's incredible in itself, a 13 run. Did you ever do any work with NXT?
I think I did 1 or 2. I had to go to the Performance Center after I had to scope my knee, so I was out for about 4 months. And then they sent me to the Performance Center, and I think I might have done a match in NXT. I don't even know if it was a dark match or it was televised, but yeah, I did. It was a short stint.
Do you think, as a knowledgeable wrestler, knowledgeable history with the background, that there is so much difference between Raw and SmackDown compared to NXT, and is that a good thing for business, do you think?
Well, I mean, I defer, and I'm not one, you know, I have no place to criticize. But, I mean, back in the day, you had wrestlers who came up with so many different styles, so many different techniques. You had brawlers, you had high flyers, you had technical wrestlers. I mean, nowadays, I mean, you know, it's just a different face in the same body. As far as the technique, they're learning the same system. It's all monotonous to me.
Who are the Puerto Rican Nightmares?
The Puerto Rican Nightmares. Oh.
How about that? How about that segue? We go from talking about the business and then just right to the Puerto Rican Nightmares.
Eric Perez. He was signed before me, and he was in FCW. So when I show up there, I said, like what happens in all promotions. All right, well let's put the Puerto Ricans together, or let's put the African Americans together. And they decided to put us in tag team, which I was fine with, because he was a big muscle. He's about 6'3", 6'4", 240, 250. So I do my high flying stuff, and he do his. You know, I was Shawn Michaels. He was Diesel.
Yeah. I like the name. Did you like the name of the team?
Well, the way I thought, I mean, it was developmental. It was a stepping stone. It's not where I wanted to do my, you know, where I wanted my career to end up. So, I mean, they could have put whatever name they wanted on me. I didn't mind.
And what was it like teaming with this wrestler? He's done it a lot in his career as well, and he likes to bite the apple. Carlito, what was it like teaming with Carlito in WWE?
Oh, no, it was a privilege. I mean, every step of the way, as far as my career goes, I always had a helping hand. I always had somebody to guide me, so I didn't, step in the crap or mess up. To let me know how the show is run. You know what I mean?
Carlito's very knowledgeable of the business as well, obviously. And do you see Carlito, and I don't know this, maybe he has, do you see him someone that could work behind the scenes or run his own shows or do things like that, or do you think he's more geared for the wrestling style?
Well, I mean, he's still got a lot in the tank, and people haven't seen him in a while. I'd like to see him have one more run. That be WWE, TNA, or AEW. Because damn it, he's an entertaining SOB.
He is. He's got a great look, and he's got a great attitude. He can make you...
Oh, he's always in shape. Always in shape.
Always in shape. He could make you hate him so easily, though. He's so good at that.
See, and that's a lost start. But he's still got it. You know, there's the last of the Mohicans, like Dutch Mantel used to say.
Yeah, Dutch Mantel, Dirty Dutch. Yeah, unbelievable. Did you ever bite the apple? Did you ever want to bite any other fruit? Bring some other fruit to the ring other than the apple?
I thought about it, but I'd break my teeth biting into pineapple. So I said, that's this thing. I'm not going to... I already stole the finishing rule. I'm not going to steal anything else.
That's so cool. And you never know. You just never know what will capture the attention, whether it be a catchphrase or biting an apple, something like that. And it worked for him. Biting. I don't know if that ever was his idea or if it was the company's idea, but it worked for him.
I think according to my brother, I think Vince came up with that idea. Vince himself.
Well, you could see your brother put everything into it and really took to it and made it work. So let us...
Yeah, because, I mean, your best impression is your first impression. And that's the one that's got to stick. So you build up, your whole career just for your first 3 minutes. And it's either sink or swim.
I'll tell you something, and someone that's been swimming is Eddie Carlos Colon. And you've been swimming, and it's amazing. I didn't know this until I was reading about it, that you were with WWE, FCW, WWE for 13 years. Not many can say they lasted with the company 13 years.
Yeah, and it went by quickly. I was close to a drawer, and I found I had 14 expired passports.
Wow.
Ran out of pages. Got a whole packet. I'm going to frame it, I think.
I know it went down. It was rough. It was during the pandemic. Just when it did go down and all the cuts were made, and then you were not working for the company anymore, was it just take a few days to get over it, dust yourself off? Just how did you deal with that situation?
No. When you're not used on TV, I mean, anybody who gets let go or released, furloughed, fired, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's very rare that you don't expect. So, I mean, if I was a businessman and I'm not using so I don't blame them. I have no ill will towards them. I mean, as a business standpoint, that was the right decision to do.
AEW, Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor, Major League Wrestling, and obviously you've mentioned WWC. But are any of those of interest to you? Have you reached out to any of the other groups?
Well, during this pandemic, I think I'm just going to just relax, let my body tell me what to do. I've always been a big fan of New Japan Wrestling. And if it was up to me, I mean, I'd like to do a little run in New Japan. So would my cousin. So we haven't made a formal approach, but if they're listening, I give them my email. Because I think New Japan still has the essence of wrestling. They put wrestling first, and entertainment is still a part of it. But wrestling is the meat and potatoes. And that's something that, you know, I was born up on, and it's something that, it's my style.
I think if Ring of Honor would, when they come back, they're going to be coming back soon now, when they start doing their shows, if they sort of do that more now that they're going to be wrestling, because they've always had good relationship too with New Japan Pro Wrestling, if I remember correctly. And Ring of Honor used to have that kind of style, that wrestling first type of style. And that may be, who knows, maybe another option out there. And I know that with you being with Los Matadores, with your cousins, and with also El Torito, and then also as the Shining Stars, and then also just as Epico and Primo, you were very well celebrated as a tag team. Much respect. 3 championship titles, whether it be with Epico or Carlito in WWE. What are the memories? Are those some of the memories you take with you right now from your WWE experiences?
Yeah, and to be able to wrestle in a couple of WrestleManias, I mean, that to me is definitely a hallmark in my career. I remember me and my brother, we wrestled against John Morrison and The Miz. It was in Houston. Unfortunately, it was a pre-show, but we had a humdinger of a match. I wish I made the main card because I said, well, you're unifying the tag team champions for the first time, championships for the first time, and you're not going to put this on the main show. It was a little, I was a little PO'd about it, but, you know, it's their decision, not mine. I said, all right, let me go show them what they missed. And we had a hell of a match. One of my favorites.
Miz and Morrison, excellent tag team. You two, an excellent tag team. You could see that. And when something like that happens, it's almost like, all right, like you just said, we're going to show them. And you showed them. And it's still, even though it was pre-show, it's still part of WrestleMania. So kudos to you all as well. Listen,
we still got to wrestle in front of 80-something thousand people, so.
That's so crazy. And you know there was a ton of people, there was millions watching on the pre-show anyway, because people, one thing they're fanatic. Whether it starts at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, they're going to have their channels set or their devices set to watch it at whatever time even the pre-show starts. It's not everybody just saying, oh, I'll wait for the main show. They're going to start watching them. And like you said, people were filling in to the stadium into Houston. They were filling in early anyway, so they all got to see that as well. What incredible experiences, incredible times. Eddie, tell us any social media for you for fans.
I have my Primo. I guess I could forward it to you. I'm not big social media, but I'm going to have to start learning it. I'm doing my booking. I'll send you the information.
Send the information. Yes, do that. Please do that because, nowadays it's so important with branding and with social media. And there, like anything, there's good and bad. But you know what? If it's something that's annoyance or bothersome, then you just don't read it that day or you ignore it for a few days. I know Mick Foley even stopped using his Twitter for a while just because there was so much negativity, not about him per se, but just in general. But you take a break from it. But it's so important too. There are also a lot of good on social media as well.
I actually feed off the negativity. I don't mind. I find it amusing because if people have time to write about that, they care more than I do about the subject, whatever it is. Even if they're knocking it or you know. So I don't. It doesn't bother me. I have tough skin when it comes to that.
Well, then you got to get on there and get started and doing your thing.
I do, yeah.
All right, listen, thank you so much for taking the time. Kudos to you. Kudos to the Cologne wrestling family. And hopefully we can do this again down the road.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll see if I can talk to my brother or Epico if you want their 2 cents and their perspective on all the things you asked me.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Yeah, I'd like to do that. I know I'm gonna contact your cousin and get a hold of him and do. I talked to Carlito, but it was several years ago. We got to do a little bit interview and all at one of the shows, so that was cool. So, but yeah, anytime. I appreciate the help. I very much so. All the best to you. Take care during this pandemic.
Yeah, you too. Stay safe. Put your mask on. Use hand sanitizer. And to all your readers, thank you for your time. And I hope you enjoy the spit.